Hey there! Did you know Kroger always gives you savings and rewards on top of our lower than low prices? And when you download the Kroger app, you'll enjoy over $500 in savings every week with digital coupons. And don't forget fuel points to help you save up to $1 per gallon at the pump. Want to save even more? With a Boost membership, you'll get double fuel points and free delivery. So shop and save big at Kroger today. Kroger, fresh for everyone. Savings may vary by state. Restrictions apply. See site for details.
This episode is brought to you by Bumble. So, you want to find someone you're compatible with, specifically someone who's ready for a serious connection, totally open to having kids in the future, is a tall, rock-climbing Libra, and loves rom-coms with vegan pizzas on Tuesdays just as much as you do. Bumble knows that you know exactly what's right for you. So whatever it is you're looking for, Bumble's features can help you find it. Date now on Bumble.
This episode's brought to you by Heidi. Imagine kicking back while a HIPAA-compliant AI scribe juggles your notes, ICD-10 codes, letters, billing, and all that jazz for free. Yeah, you heard us right. On the house, it's free. From the genius brain of Dr. Tom, who hated wasting his life writing notes, he started Heidi to change the game. Your Heidi transforms consult babble into crisp, clear soap notes, personalizing itself with every edit you make. It's the next best thing to cloning yourself without the weird science behind it. One day, your Heidi will look through research, take calls, and do anything you don't want to. So what's the catch? There's no catch. If you currently pay for an AI scribe in your practice, you should swap to Heidi. They'll even credit you for anything you've already paid. Heidi will save you an hour or more a day without dipping into your wallet. Dive into the description for the link and make your practice the envy of every stethoscope in town. Sign up, lean back, and watch Heidi work its magic. All for free because you've got better things to do.
We work hard as physicians to take care of the health and well-being of our patients. But when it comes to our money, do we have the same condition of care? Probably not. Let's change that together. Welcome to the Financial Freedom for Physicians podcast, where we'll fight and advocate for your financial literacy. As always, I'm your host, Dr. Christopher Liu. Thanks for being here. Let's jump into the show. Hey guys, welcome to this week's podcast episode, and I've got a fantastic guest for you today, Carly Pepin. She's a speaker, consultant. She specializes on human behavior, and that's the most fascinating area that I love studying is why people do what they do, why is there billionaires, and why is there such a dichotomy, and I'm happy to bring her onto the show. So Carly, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me, Chris.
Start off, we connected through Podmatch, and talk about how your early experiences brought you to do what you're doing, helping people creating a life by design, and we'll dive right into the fireside.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I know that growing up, I definitely had a different perspective on life in a sense. Like there's certain things that I loved and there's certain things that I wanted to do, but I definitely had a hard time achieving it, right? And there were businesses that I tried that didn't work out. There were circumstances in my life that weren't working out. And I just remember at a certain point being really slammed and really frustrated and feeling really lost. And at that point, I moved out of the country into Australia from Los Angeles because I assumed that would solve my problems. Then I got there and I was all by myself. And I realized, fortunately, that the problems come from within, right? I had been blaming all these external circumstances for how I felt. And then as soon as I was able to disconnect from those things and external circumstances, I had the opportunity to realize it came from the inside. And that's when I really began starting to understand human behavior, ourselves, why life purpose like plays a role in all of this, why we create and attract the things that we do and how to overcome them. So it was a real wake-up call. And it was cool because when I got back to Los Angeles, it had such a transformation in my life. I was really inspired, obviously, to share it with others. But now all of a sudden, I just remember just falling in love with the city because it wasn't about the city, it was about me. So now I really genuinely love Los Angeles. It's one of my favorite places in the world and where I call, home base, and can't imagine ever being outside of it for too long, just because that's how fulfilling it is for me to be there. So funny enough, it's just all on the inside.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Los Angeles is a fantastic city for creatives, especially in the film and music and all of that. Um, and so talking about this, creating a life by design, especially in today's world, we have so much suffering and so much conflict and, just, a lot of garbage. And so what can people expect to change in their lives by shifting their perspectives on the stories they've created?
Yeah, so the stories that we create are quite interesting because it's something that we set as the only truth, right? And one thing for any individuals, and I know a lot of entrepreneurs, business owners, they love to study, they love to learn, right? And as you learn, we realize the more that we know, the more we realize we don't know. It's a quite a humbling circumstance. And you're like, oh, I thought I knew this. And it's like, absolutely not. There's so much information and so much going on that we can't really know everything. And the same holds true for our perceptions. Those things that we're very stuck on and very black and white. You forget that there's 8 billion people on this planet, multiple cultures, multiple religions, multiple countries, multiple different dynamics in the universe of how people are meant to live according to who, according to each different spot. So for us to have the final truth, it's almost like having a God complex, you know? Like, this is our God complex. This is the final truth, and it's the final truth for 8 billion people on this planet living in very different circumstances. Like, that's actually not possible. So when we think about our stories really keep us trapped in this one way of thinking. And because of that, that's why we feel stuck and stagnant. You can't get to the other side of your challenges without actually understanding why they're there and appreciating them. Because when you do that, you stop being in this black and white persona and perception, and you open your mind up to this infinite world that's available to you. And all of a sudden, not only are you able to objectively see strategies and solutions, but you realize like they were there all the time. You just couldn't see them because you were so stuck in this story that you were running. And the story, funny enough, sometimes we're so attached to it because of what we perceive we're going to gain or lose on the other side. We might perceive we're going to lose something we love if we let go of this story. You might perceive you're going to gain something you hate if you let go of this story. But the reality is that story is the very thing that's holding you back from moving forward. And so really understanding how to catch our own stories, see our own stories, self-reflect on what that looks like. It takes time, it takes energy, and it takes a lot of practice. But in the long run, it really is impactful because the more that we let go of these personas and these perceptions of what we should be and embrace more of who we authentically are, the more we give ourselves permission to move forward, like genuinely just move forward. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. And there's I was reading this great book and it's talking about these human needs and then basically, how your physiology impacts your state and your needs. And then basically, you're talking about billions of people on this planet. It's just a combination of these different needs and, peppered in with, core values, beliefs. What I'm really interested in this idea of stories because, there's self-inflicted stories. There's like, oh, she did this to me, or this is, government this and that. And then there's actually like social conditioning. It's like you will get married, you will have kids, you will live in a white picket fence, you will have this X, Y, and Z career. So talk about this impact of narratives on your stories and how to break out of that.
Yeah, so with our stories, like whenever you're blaming something on the outside, right? Take no credit, take no blame, just keep focused on your chief aim. Beautiful BJ Palmer chiropractor, brilliant. So when we start to give blame to something on the outside, you're actually not seeing your contribution and creation of it. I remember working with an individual who had theft within the company, right? And we're talking millions of dollars, right? Millions and millions of dollars of theft within the company. Very frustrated, very angry. Now, the interesting dynamic is there's a lot of blame on this person's bad, this person's wrong. And it's like, well, let's actually take some responsibility and see how that happens. Let's reflect on why you created it. This individual's life purpose is not retiring. Like they're in it to win it and change the dynamic of an entire culture and empower individuals. It's inspiring. It's inspiring. I don't ever want that person to walk away from that. Like it's just so inspiring. And when they talk about it, it opens their heart. They're grateful for that component. And that's why they started the company. They decided to retire. And when they chose to retire, what winds up occurring is that they step out of the business. And as they step out of the business, guess what happens? Chaos ensues. And when the chaos ensues, these things start to slip through the cracks to a greater degree. So is it really this other person's fault that stole, or are you so disconnected from your own vision and mission that you allowed this to happen because you walked away and you stopped doing what you love because you subordinated to the idea that you needed to retire, even though that wasn't your vision, wasn't your mission, right? So, and this is the beautiful part is that individual who stole that money got that person back on track, got that person back in the company, and got that person back to making a difference. And trust me, sometimes people think, oh, I'd rather just sit on a beach and smoke cigars and drink all day. Would you really? Imagine what that feels like every day to not make a contribution and do nothing with your life. That sounds like a nightmare to me. Like that's just a nightmare to just sit there and wake up every day and have nothing to live for except for a drink, a cigar, and a view. Like that sounds like an absolute nightmare, as opposed to waking up every day and finding quality ways to be able to incorporate. I don't want you to stop going to the beach, go to the beach. Go to the beach, enjoy a glass of wine or a nice drink every now and then, a nice cigar, while you're simultaneously making sure that you're doing something meaningful. Meaning doesn't come from sitting around doing nothing and retiring. Meaning comes from actually being of service and seeing the impact that you make and feeling it. That's where the most meaning comes from. Nobody in their entire life in my business has ever told me that's the greatest meaning they've ever gotten was by themselves doing nothing with no purpose and nothing whatsoever. The greatest meaning that people share with me is when they've impacted someone else's lives. And so it's like, yeah, when we blame the outside world for all our problems and challenges, we're not actually seeing what's going on within us, you know? And I see this as well because divorce is like a really, really challenging situation to go through where people will blame each other in divorces and it gets highly volatile, right? Here's the thing. Here's the thing about it. Both sides and both parties want to be right. And your story is that you're right. And the longer that you're right, the more money lawyers make because you guys go back and forth and you fight with each other. And if you look at how much divorces cost, we're talking six figures. And by the way, the lawyers don't care if you fight the whole time. They're just making a crap ton of cash on a monthly basis. They profit off of your fighting. When you come to terms and stop blaming the other for what happened in the marriage and you start to see your contribution, you'll start to see why the other person shifted and vice versa. And then there's also the dynamic of why did this happen? Again, I can't tell you how many times, like even just working with individuals now, it's like we're getting to see, okay, cool. Like you really just slacked off. You disconnected from who you were. And now as a result of this person doing these challenges, even while you were married, that's actually what you got moving again. Because sometimes like we are so focused on the story that things are supposed to be one-sided and nice and pleasant that you don't realize that you didn't have it in you to just do it on your own. It took that fire. It took someone pushing you. It took someone yelling at you, getting frustrated with you, holding you accountable. Like that's how much we're attached to our stories sometimes that the universe brings in the perfect challenger to say, get off your ass and get on mission. Like, this is your purpose. This is what we want. This is the next steps. And we can sit there and blame this other person for as long as you want. But if you didn't have that challenge, you'd be still sitting on your ass, like doing nothing. So it's the love and appreciation for life overall and realizing that life is not here to give you only the things that you think it should. Like, again, this is our God complex. Like, why is life giving me this? Life is here to give you what you're meant to have. And when we ask the quality questions to see how that serves us, it drops the story. We get into gratitude and appreciation, and you become resilient as well. Because now that you know that there's purpose behind this and you have certainty because you've seen it in your own life, guess what? You have resilience when it happens again. It's not going to impact you to the same degree. And you can actually move forward it more effectively and efficiently in present and future. It's really the power of the mind is beyond what we can imagine.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that was so well said, and I think it resonates with, and it's really I love this idea of blaming and this one-sided story, and then actually kind of zooming out and looking at everything. And it reminds me of this, this one talking about just how in this age of misinformation and disinformation, like you have the same scenarios, but people from different sides come to completely opposite conclusions. So it's good to have a check on your stories. I love that. So how can people let's say they get in their head and they're all these stories and all this, how can they check themselves and get out of that and say, get out of this, this is not empowering, find a different story.
Yeah, so there's some really beautiful language that we can pay attention to, right? So always and never, right? That's a very black and white perception. When you say this person is always this way or never this way, right? My first question to an always and never, because some of you guys are probably like, well, they are always that way, Carly, or they're never that way, is that this person's alive for 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And they're also sleeping during that time period. And I bet you they don't always or never do what you're labeling, even in their sleep. And you're not around 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So how could you even put that on them, right? So always and never is a direct indicator when we're saying that we have a story and we've labeled an individual or even ourselves a specific way. So if you're saying, I always do this and I never do this, you're labeling yourself a specific way. Now, sometimes people think, well, it's only the bad that we need to pay attention to, the perceived negative, right? When we think about that, we always are never someone on something that we label as negative, right? But what about the things that we label as positive? That also is a story you've told yourself. Every individual on this planet has both sides. Chris, I bet you, and I have certainty, if I'm supporting you on this podcast right now, you're going to support me right back because I am feeding your life purpose and I'm fulfilling what's important to you. But if I'm going off on a tangent and freaking out and doing all sorts of weird things and brushing my teeth and I don't know, just crazy stuff, right? Like crazy stuff and insulting you, what are you going to do? You're going to get challenged. You're going to get frustrated. You're going to get angry. You're going to get pissed off at me. You're going to disconnect and you're going to get me out of your life. And I don't expect you to be only positive because if I'm doing that, please do that. That's highly disrespectful for you and your purpose. Get rid of me. So if we expect anyone to be one-sided, all positive as we label, people just become pushovers. You could walk all over someone that way. And if we expect them to be all negative and label them as all negative, you're actually not even seeing and acknowledging the other side of the person. People will fight and push you when you challenge their life purpose and things that are important to you. And they will support you and open up to you when you support that, when you support their life purpose and things that are important to them. So really understanding when you say always and never on yourself or others, that's a story and that's a label and that's something you put on yourself. Another really cool thing to pay attention to is our shoulds. When you say you should do this, you need to, you're supposed to, you have to, you ought to, you've got to, you're in that moment saying that you're better than the other person and you know what's good for them, and that's not true. That's why when you should someone, if someone's very disempowered in that moment, they'll listen to you and they'll follow it, but it's not going to last for long. The human condition and the human nature is meant to overcome that. And eventually you're going to get a fight and you're going to get a fight hard. I promise you that. And this is part of what I love about our human nature is that we're not meant to subordinate. We're just meant to be authentic. We're meant to be ourselves. So if you're subordinating or you see someone subordinating to that, expect them to come up against you after a certain period of time, right? So those shoulds have to, supposed to, that's you saying you're better than this person and I know better. When you should yourself, and you say, I should, I need to, I have to, I supposed to, you are saying that someone else is better than you. You've now said and made them an authority in your life. You have a story that someone out there that you've compared yourself to knows better than you in your own life. It is your life. If we compared the person you're comparing yourself to you, I guarantee you the background, the education, the diversity of the experiences you have are so different. How on earth do you have certainty that that person knows better for you in your life? So catching that, those are actually where our stories lie and our misperceptions and our judgments. Our judgments are actually our stories. So the more that you're clear on catching those and the more that you can find yourself doing it, it's the more that you're whoa, where is the story here? What about this is a story? I haven't actually caught this before. Some of you guys are listening and probably thinking about your shoulds and always and nevers and stuff. And you're like, how is that a story? Like, where is that a story? What is the story that I've been telling myself that I sold myself on? That is not true, right? And it's a beautiful way to start to give yourself the reflection and catch those stories that aren't real.
Yeah, I love that. I love this always and these expectations and catch yourself. And another good thing is talking, whether something is empowering or disempowering, and that's how you kind of do a gut check. Kind of rounding it out, you talked about authenticity and how does lasting self-worth, self-esteem, how do they both go hand in hand?
Yeah, so we have the temporary hits. It's almost like a dopamine hit, right? Of self-worth and confidence. And that comes from an affirmation that you don't have certainty is true. You can say an affirmation, but if you don't know it's true, then you don't believe it. So when I say I like to create lasting self-worth in someone, you can do that as opposed to just saying the affirmation. We find evidence in your life, actual data from your life experiences that what you thought was missing exists and where it exists, right? So this is really cool because you might wake up every day and be like, I'm a millionaire, I'm a billionaire, and I want to create all this money and do all this stuff. You technically already are. Again, you've compared yourself to someone who has physical finances. You put yourself down because you said that's better than your life, right? Having it in the physical form. And that's when you put yourself down, not realizing that every person has an equal amount of wealth on this planet, but we prioritize and focus it on the place and in the space that's most important to us. And if you look at the people you're comparing yourselves to, look at where they're lacking in something inspiring that you have a plethora of. And all of a sudden you'll realize, oh, they put so much energy here that they don't have what I have here. Would I trade that money for this? And you'll say no, because that's how valuable it is to you. That's how valuable. And so this is really cool because like when we ask those quality questions to find the data, and I can show you that data and I guess give you some insights to find that data within your own life, right? Then you realize and have certainty that that's inside you. And you cannot take away certainty. Certainty will far exceed anyone else's doubt. Someone can come up against you and butt up against you and say X, Y, Z and tell you to, should, supposed to. But when you've seen it in your life through the actual data, you have certainty. And someone can tell you what you should do. And all of a sudden, all that certainty from all that work we did comes up and says, actually, no, my life doesn't demonstrate that. Appreciate your opinion, but I'm going to do me. And that reconnects you to the authenticity and gives you permission when you're going to study with people, when you're going to learn, when you have mentors, when you have colleagues, when you have partners, that you can listen and take bits and pieces of wisdom from them, but also drop some of the stuff to the side that doesn't work. And then you're also more balanced internally, and you can actually utilize the information that's coming to you to a greater degree with more wisdom. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. How can people follow you, contact you, check out your work, reach out to you, etc.?
Yeah, so the best place is on my website, which is carlypepin.com. That's the best place to go. And then there's contact information and then every social media platform that you would like to connect to, but I'm not on all of them because it's a lot. There's so many now.
Yeah.
So just pick the most popular ones.
Yeah, I really enjoyed this conversation. And for the audience out there, be sure to give Carly a like and follow on all of her socials. These will be in the links and show notes. Check out her website, work with her. And with that, thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks again to Heidi. Elevate your practice with a free AI scribe, zero cost, HIPAA compliant, and ever learning. Heidi turns tedious tasks into time saved. Ready to swap? We've got you covered for past AI scribe expenses. Head to HeidiHealth.com, get started, and make your practice the envy of every stethoscope in town.
I'm excited that you made it for another episode. You are truly the best. If you've been following the show for a while, you know that my passion is to bring you the education you need to find your path to financial freedom. Please come back week after week for new content, new resources, and great guests. Until then, if you haven't already, please be sure to check out the website www.drchrislewmdphd.com for more support. I'll see you next week.